And it's 12 minutes past 5 now with Danny Pike. In the news this evening, a long-running public inquiry into what's been called the worst treatment disaster in the history of the NHS heard its final evidence today. It's thought tens of thousands were infected with HIV and hepatitis between 1970 and 1991 after being given a contaminated drug or blood transfusion. Treloar's College in Hampshire was one such site where as many as 89 boys were offered treatment for blood conditions and subsequently infected. Only 16 remain alive today. The inquiry started in 2018 has reviewed thousands of documents and heard testimony from 370 witnesses. Earlier, I spoke to Des Collins, who's senior partner at Collins Solicitors, who advised 1,500 victims and their families. First, I asked about the length of the inquiry itself.
It's been painfully slow. It was inevitable that this inquiry was going to take a long time, if for no other reason than it had been put to one side or refused by successive administrations over a period of 35 or 40 years. Once you're looking at that sort of period, you're not simply looking at the first decision or the second decision, which was made 35 years ago. You really have got to, and the inquiry has done this, look at the whole position as it developed over the past 40 years and looked at why things did change at any particular time. So yes, it has taken a long time, but we hope it's been worthwhile.
So what comes next, Des?
The next stage will be a report which the chair will go away and write. He's heard evidence for four and a half years. As with most, he's a retired High Court judge, as with most judges. He will have done a lot of the work as he goes through so that he's not starting from scratch at the end. You're going to ask me, I imagine, when the report's going to come out. We don't know. We anticipate that sometime towards the back end of the summer. There's always a possibility that it may come in two sections. One of the issues, the burning issues, is a recommendation which was introduced into government about a year ago, that there should be a full compensation scheme put in place. Now, the present government or present administration has totally ignored that to date, and that is something which I know the 1,500 people we represent want to move on with, and it may be I can't put it higher than that, it could be the subject of an interim report over the next 2 or 3 months, but we'll have to wait and see.
If nothing else, the latest milestone has been reached today. Is there any relief for people concerned and who are involved in this?
It's the end of a chapter. I don't think they will the victims will be able to put this case behind them until the book is closed completely. And you mentioned earlier the pupils at Treloar School. That is something which is has become a huge issue in terms that they were sent to that school, and the view they take is that they were experimented on. Now, that's the subject of separate litigation at the moment, and until that is resolved, I think those pupils will certainly not be able to put it behind them. And similarly, you'll have a lot of victims who were treated by a particular hospital, a particular doctor, a particular set of medical professionals, and they will feel that those particular doctors, medical professionals, should themselves apologise. So whether that's going to happen or not, I don't know. But there are so many strands to it that you can't just suddenly say, well, the case closes. It will in one way or another, largely because it's gone on for so long. It will go on for a lot longer, but not in quite such high profile as it has recently with the public inquiry.
Des Collins, senior partner at Collins Solicitors, speaking to me earlier, and we mentioned Treloar's College in Hampshire there. One of the former pupils and victims of the scandal is Richard Warwick, who joins me now. Hello, Richard. Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, just going back to something that Des said there, do you feel that you were experimented on?
Oh, absolutely. All the boys there that attended between 1970 and the early 1980s were used in trials to test the efficacy and infectivity of different types of blood products. And they used the school literally as a testing ground because we were a captive audience at the boarding school.
What happened to you, Richard? Tell us your circumstances.
Okay, well, I started at the college when I was 10 years old, and I was given hepatitis B, HIV, and hepatitis C while I was at the college. Hepatitis C was called in the earlier days non-A, non-B hepatitis, and it wasn't until early 2000s when it became you could test for it, and it was called Hep C. So yeah, three viruses I was infected with. And
what did they say they were doing?
Well, they didn't. That's the thing. I mean, we entrusted the care of the college staff with it. I think the legal term is in loco parentis,
right?
Where they acted as our parents. And they failed in every respect. They didn't tell our parents that they were using different products and trying different products on us. They didn't tell us about any trials that we're conducting. And they certainly didn't tell us. We were bemused by the fact that we often had to have blood taken from us, sometimes twice a day. And we just thought it was something to do with inhibitor testing to test our factor VIII levels. But as it turns out, they were actually trying these different products on the kids. Yeah.
So, are you part of did you give evidence this inquiry that's just closed now?
Yes, my wife. I gave evidence along with my wife in 2019.
Right. So again, with all these things, it's the amount of time that it takes for these cogs to grind, isn't it? So 4 years ago, and are you part of that litigation as well that Des mentioned too?
Yeah, I'm a part of the GLO, the Group Litigation Order, and hopefully we'll be having our day in High Court, hopefully towards the end of this year.
Mm. And my thought, Richard, is that the decades this is taking to sort out, and the different governments of different political parties, on behalf of the nation, you deserve to have closure on this. You need to be able to move on from this.
Well, the thing is, we've been campaigning for between 20 and 30 years, and it's become our lives, really, as long-term campaigners, that we've been pushing for this inquiry. And it's going to be very difficult to fill this void that we're going to be left with at the end of the inquiry. I don't see that it's going to be easy to sort of down tools and move on with our lives, and when none of us are getting any younger.
Well, that's also my thought, is that some people won't have made it this far.
That's right, and we've lost estimates of between 2,500 and 3,000 people so far. 500 people have died since the start of the inquiry in September 2018. That's 500 people that have died just while the inquiry's been going on.
And just answer me this, Richard. Why do you think it is that no government up until still now and into the future hasn't really sorted this out and acknowledged what's gone on and actually tried to put it right or apologise on behalf of the nation to you?
It's very simple. All governments of all stripes have closed around the lie that the best treatment was given to patients, and the best medical information was available at the time. And each successive government stuck with that line that there's nothing else we could have done at the time. We gave them the best treatment, and there's nothing else we could do. And each government, that was never challenged until the inquiry came along, and it was all a blatant lie. They knew very well that these treatments were dangerous. They knew people would die, and yet they continued to use them.
Mm. And are you well at the moment?
I'm okay, as well as can be expected. My wife and I sort of battle on day to day, and we get on with life. But yeah, it's so sad that so many people won't see the end of this inquiry. I haven't seen the end of this inquiry, and so many people won't get any sort of closure.
Richard, thanks for talking to us. All the best to you. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Good to speak to you. Thanks. Richard Warwick there with us on BBC Radio Sussex and BBC Radio Surrey.